The room was buzzing with the usual pre-ceremony chatter. Military brass, decorated officers, and a handful of civilians gathered for what was supposed to be just another veterans event at Fort Bragg. But nobody expected what was about to happen. Nobody expected the man in the wheelchair. And nobody, absolutely nobody, expected the name that would make every Delta Force operator in that room snap to attention. He rolled in quietly, this disabled veteran with graying hair and a weathered face that told stories his mouth never would. The kind of face that's seen things, done things, survived things that would break most men. His wheelchair squeaked slightly as he positioned himself near the back, away from the spotlight, away from the attention. He wore a simple black jacket, no medals, no patches, nothing to indicate who he was or what he'd done. Just another forgotten warrior, right? That's what they all thought. But then a young Delta Force lieutenant, fresh-faced and still riding high on the adrenaline of his recent deployment, noticed him. Maybe it was boredom, maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was just cruel fate putting the right person in the right place at the exact wrong time. The lieutenant walked over, that cocky swagger in his step, and looked down at the man in the wheelchair. "So," he said, loud enough for others to hear, "were you in the service, old-timer?" The veteran looked up, his eyes calm, almost kind. "I was," he said softly. "Nothing more. Just those two words." The lieutenant smirked. "What did you do? Supply? Admin?" There was a chuckle from a few nearby soldiers. It was innocent enough, the usual military ribbing, but it stung. It always stung, because this man had given everything, literally everything. And here he was, being sized up like he'd spent his career pushing papers. "Operator," the veteran replied, his voice still quiet, still controlled. Now the lieutenant was interested. "Operator? Which unit?" The room was starting to pay attention now. Conversations were dying down. Heads were turning. The veteran hesitated. You could see it in his eyes. That internal debate every real warrior has. The men who truly did the impossible never want to talk about it. The ones who brag usually have the least to brag about. But something in that moment, maybe the disrespect, maybe the years of being invisible, maybe just divine timing, something made him answer. "JSOC," he said. "Joint Special Operations Command." The room got quieter. The lieutenant's smirk faded just a little. "JSOC, what was your call sign?" And here it was, the moment. The man in the wheelchair looked around the room, saw all the eyes on him now, took a breath that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 missions, and spoke two words that would change everything. Titan III. The effect was instantaneous. A full-bird colonel who'd been chatting near the coffee table dropped his cup. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't even notice. A master sergeant, a man with 22 years in special operations, went pale. Actually pale, like he'd seen a ghost. And the young lieutenant? His face went from cocky to horrified in less than a second. Because if you were in the community, if you were really in the know, you knew that name. Titan III wasn't just a call sign. It was a legend. It was a ghost story. It was the boogeyman that enemy combatants whispered about in the dark. The colonel was the first to move. He practically ran across the room, his shoes crunching over the broken ceramic, and when he reached the wheelchair, this full-bird colonel, with 30 years of service and more medals than wall space, he snapped to attention and saluted. Not the casual, everyday salute. The kind of salute you give to someone who earned it in blood and fire and sacrifice. "Sir," the colonel's voice cracked with emotion, "it is an honor." The stories started flooding out then, as other operators recognized the name and crowded around. Titan III had been part of the team that extracted hostages from a compound in Yemen when everyone said it was impossible. Titan III had single-handedly held a position in Ramadi for 6 hours against overwhelming enemy force, long enough for his team to evacuate wounded. Titan III had been the tip of the spear on operations that would never be declassified, that saved lives and changed the course of conflicts. all in the shadows, where heroes don't get parades. And then came the question everyone was too afraid to ask, but needed to know. How did Titan III end up in that wheelchair? The veteran's eyes got distant then. Traveling back to a dusty street in Afghanistan, an IED, a split-second decision to push his teammate out of the blast radius. And the price he paid. His legs, his career, nearly his life. He'd saved his brother that day, but lost his ability to walk. And he never complained, never asked for recognition, never demanded the respect he'd earned 1,000 times over. The young lieutenant, tears streaming down his face now, dropped to one knee beside the wheelchair. "Sir, I am so sorry. I had no idea. Titan III put a hand on the lieutenant's shoulder. "How could you know, son? I'm nobody special. Just a guy who did his job." But that wasn't true. That wasn't even close to true. And everyone in that room knew it. By the end of the ceremony, Titan III wasn't sitting in the back anymore. He was front and center, where he belonged, surrounded by warriors who knew what real courage looked like. It wasn't in the medals or the ribbons or the rank. It was in the quiet man in the wheelchair who'd given everything and asked for nothing in return. Some heroes wear capes, others wear wheelchairs, but they're all heroes just the same.